This episode of the Restoration Today podcast is brought to you by Albee. Albee is the all-in-one operating system designed specifically for restoration businesses like yours. It's the CRM that has everyone talking. With Albee, you'll have everything you need in one streamlined platform. From CRM to data analytics and automation, Albee provides tailored solutions that cater to your unique needs. So say goodbye to the hassle of managing multiple apps and hello to the convenience of having all your essential functions all in a single, user-friendly platform. Check out albeeware.com to book your demo today. Hey Restorers, thanks for checking out this episode of the Restoration Today podcast. I have a great friend back on the show today. I'm very excited to have Leighton back with me. He's from Knowhow. Knowhow and CNR have had the privilege of partnering up for the last few years on the state of the industry study, and I've really gotten to know Leighton and his team at Knowhow, and I'm very thankful for their partnership that we've kind of established. And Knowhow does a lot for the industry on top of their product offering, which is kind of software and helping build the know-how of your team so they know how to do things. And part of what Knowhow loves to do is research and share content and valuable insights with the industry. So we are here to talk about Knowhow's latest book, which is not their first one. This is their latest one, Winning with Workers. So that's what we're here to talk about today. So Leighton, I'm going to toss it over to you. Have you kind of introduce yourself and share a little bit more about Knowhow, and then we'll dive into what this book is all about.
Thanks, Michelle. Hey, thanks for having us here. And we're pretty big CNR fans. And so thanks for having us here. Winning with Workers. Winning with Workers is a book built around principles. You know, I like to think of principles as in the changing nature of this business. You know, people that have been in this industry for 10 years, 5 years, 50 years know that things move, things change. And when things move and change, companies still need to get built, and the ability to look on the horizon and see immovable fixtures that you can actually, you can point your ship towards and say, hey, let's go in that direction and we'll experience success. And that's what we're after with this book. You know, the blue collar industry, the service industry, the field service industry, pick a title. It's in a labor crisis. It's in a labor crisis. And our interest in writing this book was to pull together new research, existing research, expand research, and interview numerous leading restoration firms, and to try to understand what are the principles at play in companies that are winning when it comes to this workforce crisis, and to present that in a format that is tangible, it's realistic. And it allows people to be able to assess, some of the things that they're probably doing very well. They just didn't know that it actually fell within a principle, and to help them identify some gaps that they can close. And we try to take a very practical approach to how they can close those. So what is Knowhow? So Knowhow is best known as a very easy to use app that restorers use to be able to rapidly onboard, upskill, and provide in-field guidance to their workforce, to be able to help them to bridge the competency gap and just make it very easy for them to solve problems independently across the services that they offer, the machines and equipment, the software that they utilize, to really be able to empower that worker to be successful, and then allow management to just take back, half their time that's often just spent firefighting, micromanaging, Q&Aing people to death. And so that's what we are. And we're very passionate about helping restorers to be able to win with the reality of the workforce dynamics today.
Perfect. Okay, so I want to have you talk a little bit more about the foundation of Knowhow and the research you've done, because this is your third book. If I am correct, if we leave state of the industry out of it, because that's a whole different animal, but this is your third book that Knowhow has produced. You had the one on going through the 1,000 bad reviews. How did that happen? And then you had Why Workers Quit, and now Winning with Workers, which is kind of the flip side of that scenario. So what is your methodology behind doing this research? How have you been able to pull in this data over time through these books to create data that is worthwhile and meaty enough to say, yeah, this is really the way it is?
One of the things that I say a culture of data and research provides is you get closer and closer to the nerve of the problem. And as you
Mhm.
get closer and closer to the nerve of the problem, and you better understand what's really keeping, say, business owners up at night, what's really going on behind the curtains, what's really causing workers to pack their bags and take a role somewhere else, actually you gain more clarity, and the quality of your research gets better. So you spend less time doing broad stroke research, and you start to really go deeper and deeper, and rather than trying to turn over boulders, you're really turning over stones. So I think that winning with workers is, I would say, it's really the byproduct of having so many studies and so much data in motion, and so many conversations that resulted from that research. And after you just keep turning over stone after stone after stone, and we build on that insight, we build on those conversations, we identify people who are having success, and we're able to just filter down. And then really I would say that the premises of this book became quite clear, and we saw very quickly that it was going to be a principle based book. It was going to be really focused on a framework that is in play in companies that are succeeding. And for us, we want the data because we're really committed to being the best at what we do. Um, and uh, and we believe in sharing what we discover, because at the end of the day, um, we want to be part of an industry that's successful. So we have a committee that kind of leads the writing work. It's kind of a guy on our team calls it kind of like these like tiger teams, where you kind of pull together skill sets from across the team, and we chart a course. We manage it like a project, and then it's really a matter of bringing all the parts together to stick the landing on what we hope is a helpful resource that can have, an enduring impact on the industry. And so you can get it on Amazon.com if you like a hard copy, or you can get a digital copy if you're comfortable with that at winningwithworkers.com.
Perfect. Okay. So let's start to set the foundation. So talk through these
Mhm.
8
Mhm.
I'm
Principles.
principles. Thank you. I'm like, I know
Principles.
the word, it's there somewhere. Yeah. To talk through these 8 principles, and then we can dive in a little bit more. I want to show like people who are watching versus listening.
Mhm.
This is how Knowhow's books look on the inside. I mean, they're colored, they have colored
Mhm.
charts and things like that, which make them
Mhm.
really fun and more engaging, I think, to go through than just like the black and white books that you're used to. So
Yes.
I highly encourage. I like print copies too, although I'm a little biased
Yes.
in the print area, maybe, but I like having hard
Yes.
copies of things. So, okay, talk through the 8 principles.
So the 8 principles is our framework for what we see at play in companies that are really knocking it out of the park. And not all the principles, we didn't find a single company where all the principles are in play, but we really believe that, if you think about the Parthenon of excellent employment experience, that Parthenon has 8 pillars.
Mhm.
And so let's dig into them. So the first one we say, and hey, anyone who's studied mnemonics or memory or teaching, we write the principles in a way we hope it's memorable, but it doesn't depart from the principle. So let's go through them. The first one we say is companies that are winning with workers today are really, really focused on building, cultivating, and protecting a weird culture. So we say create a weird culture. What the heck does that mean? The second principle is we say companies that win with workers advance the whole worker. So what does that mean? To advance an entire worker. And what we're talking about there is getting away from building lopsided workers. And we can talk
Mhm.
about that. Principle 3, connect work with meaning. I think that people can read between the lines there. Connect work with meaning. It's very important, particularly to the Gen Z and late stage millennial. Number 4, principle number 4 is democratize how to. I can
Mm.
speak to that. It actually goes right to the origin story of Knowhow. Number 5, mobilize a bionic workforce. What is that? Are we trying to bring cyborgs into our industry? But we say companies that are succeeding with the workforce today understand how to enhance their workforce with the right technology solutions. There's also a great HR angle to that. Principle number 6 is resist operational entropy. Everyone, blast from the past back to physics and chemistry. What are we talking about with entropy? Well, what we're talking about is a rigor that companies establish. And you'll say, but this is a chaotic industry. How am I supposed to maintain rigor? Companies that have rigor are companies that have two things. They're able to go into chaos well, and they can come out of chaos well. They have something that we like to call operational stamina, where they can, when they go through stamina, they can get, when they go through chaos, they can get back on their feet and get back to operational excellence faster. Principle number 7, become communication athletes. Communication is one of those things you can control. It's one of those things that a lot of us just think the way I talk is the way I talk. And they don't realize that actually in a communication driven industry, we have to push to be excellent in the way we communicate verbally, non-verbally, and in written communication. And then number 8 is that we need to we say that a principle in play in companies that will be outsized, will have an outsized advantage in today's workforce, is that they create a net zero stress workplace. Okay, what is that? There's a lot of syllables going on there, right? Create a net zero stress workplace, and we kind of draw from the fact that this is an industry. I always like to, sometimes I joke and say, I'm sure that in like some room in every restoration company, like, it's there. There's a machine that just like produces stress. It's like it's pumping away.
Yeah.
I don't know where it is, but I know it's here.
Yeah.
And we just dig into the fact that stress, like rust, has a corrosive impact on things. In this case, the rust is corroding humans, and some of it is avoidable, some of it's not avoidable. So what do you do? What do you do with that? And how do you build workforces that have a sustainable level of execution?
So
So that's it. Those are the 8.
sorry, I love the phrasing of each of them.
Mm-hmm.
I love, and this wasn't part of the, but when you were talking about operational stamina, that's a good concept in and of itself, and something important to learn, because it does
Mm-hmm.
take stamina, especially for restoration companies. When you're talking about cat seasons and things like that, especially, you got to
Mm-hmm.
have that stamina to get through and
Mm-hmm.
keep going after the fact. But
Mm-hmm.
okay, so in this book, you also pulled in not just data that you've gotten through surveys, you pulled in some meaty stuff from restorers,
Mm-hmm.
specifically reached out to specific restoration companies to kind of get their input on these different areas. So you don't have to share all of it, but maybe think like one restoration company that you reached out to and kind of the input that they had and the value that restorers were able to bring into this project.
We have a variety of inputs, and one of which is we try to be very selective in who we interview on our podcasts, and it's all kind of a web of insight that we're trying to draw together. And one of our podcasts is called the Restoration Playbook, and it's a podcast purely it's focused. If I can remember how to speak English, it's focused on identifying operators who we think are just doing an excellent job, just executing. And so in that, each chapter, I should clarify, each principle is broken down into some word pictures, some examples that we hope will make the concept a little bit easier to internalize, and then it includes a case study and then some very practical action steps. The case study in each principle highlights a restoration company that we believe that principle is alive and well, and it's contributing to their success. So let's just kind of pick a few off the shelf. Creating a weird culture. Creating a weird culture, it may sound kind of odd at first glance, but when you think about even just some of the best sports teams, their fans just stand out, and you can tell if you're part of the team or if you're not part of the team. And in our observation, few companies do a better job letting you know that you're not one of us, but making you want to be one of us than Thomasville Restoration.
Yeah,
They do such a
I knew that
they do such a
had to be going.
they have to, and you know what? And they've invested in brand to an extent that few do. I would say that sometimes you only see that level of investment at the franchise level, where people go deep into brand and into visual identity, and what they've achieved is something that if you attend any event that they're at, it's very clear that you're not one of their team members, and they take pride in being able to say, and you kind of I joke and I'll say sometimes, like, it's pretty clear who are the innies and who are the outies, with that team. And you'll hear if you jump into that podcast episode, you'll hear about how just the stories that they hear come up through the ranks of workers where like the clothing work provided them is like it's actually better quality than the clothing they have at home, and so they wear it to the gym, they wear it to the mall, and
Yep.
it results in referrals, and it results in a pride in the workplace that isn't very common now as people sit down at the pub, sit down at the restaurant, catch up with friends, chat online as they video game and kind of gripe about work. That's not the experience that they project. And so that'd be one example. Another example that comes to mind would be a team that is really focused on, we would say, mobilizing a bionic workforce and really embracing technology, but being very strategic in how they make decisions would be Blue Sky Restoration. And our
Yep.
conversation with Chuck Lane, brilliant guy,
Mm-hmm.
and someone who thinks very holistically around how they make selections around technology. And so I think that's a really great example. Sometimes, when you think about a large organization, you think about companies that are sluggish and not dynamic. And, there are many of those. I don't think Blue Sky is one of those. In fact, I think that we have a unique dynamic in restoration in that some of the largest providers, independent providers in this industry, are very technologically nimble. You look at three things. You look at the tech stack that these organizations are bringing in from other industries. You're seeing a lot of kind of CTO and CIO type roles
Yep.
that are coming in from, if you look at the credentials of some of these big players, the backgrounds of their CTOs and their CIOs, these are not people who came up in the ranks. These are people who've been grafted in from technology industries, from banking industries. It's pretty impressive. So I think Blue Sky is a good example. And then, you know what? One that jumps out to me, maybe just to speak to uh, a small yet mighty firm, is a group that most people have never heard of, a small operator called Seaside Restoration. And they really believe in connecting work with meaning and being able to um, retain workers and just create like a hyper defensible moat between their competitors by encouraging their staff to go above and beyond and really bear their heart when they spend time with customers and to make real connections that aren't superficial. And I'll tell you, I'm sure there are a lot of large restoration leaders, Michelle, that probably miss the days when they were small and they
Mm-hmm.
remembered all their staff's name.
Yeah.
And the idea of going back to a time where you could just really just focus on remembering every customer's name and providing high quality service. It's a it's kind of a yesteryear um, walk down memory lane that a lot of big restorers have, and Seaside's living it. Their commitment to helping their staff find fulfillment in work by going the extra mile and seeing that as a margin contributing activity is really noteworthy. But those
Okay.
are a few examples.
Yeah, I love it. And there's more examples in the books. You're gonna have to read the book to find out who else is in there because those are just a few of there's multiple in there. So what would you say is something that jumped out to you as surprising in a way to win with workers? I think this is a topic that we talk about a lot, right? And a lot of the same ideas tend to be thrown around, but I'm guessing that in the course of this book, something came out that surprised you. So share a thing or two that were like, oh, okay, that's interesting.
Oh, so many. I think that one that surprised us was for us to really dig into the true cost of what we call lopsided work environments. And, we didn't really publish a lot of this. We thought it might be a little bit too personal, but um, just divorce rates in this industry, right? And just yeah, just the toll that uh, I would say unaddressed stress plays in the lives of workers and the lives of their home life. I think that it's probably a little less, kind of, freakonomics, like people that drive blue trucks and start on Tuesdays instead of Mondays have an out. It's a little less that where some of the data that we see come up in like state of the industry,
Yep.
but it was just one of those kind of painful validations that like you know when cortisol builds up in a person through just like months and months and years of just unaddressed stress, it's got to go somewhere. Got to go somewhere. And I was reviewing a book for someone last night, and they open by kind of saying their why they wrote this book, and they referenced two examples or two stories, and one story that they said is he said, I was talking to my 6-year-old son at the dinner table, and his 6-year-old son looked at him and said, Daddy, why does work get fun, Daddy, and I get grouchy, Daddy, every day? You know?
Ooh.
And he said that was really startling for him to think about.
Huh.
And I think that there's if you say, well, what's something that's surprising? Some of it's reading between the lines on the responses and the data, but I think there's a lot of people in this industry where work gets fun daddy or fun mummy, and home life gets grouchy mummy, grouchy daddy, or like just like worn out beef jerky mummy. And I think that is not sustainable.
So, what would you say is something that one of the restoration companies you talk to, something that stuck out is like that's a really unique thing that they're doing to win with workers? I don't want you to give away all the meat in the book, so just like
Mhm.
one quick example is great. But um, I know most of the companies in here, and I know little nuggets here and there. So I'm curious what stuck out to
Mhm.
you is what like, wow, that's really smart.
Well, I think that let's take for example a company that I think doesn't get enough press, but is an impressive company, Paul Davis of Utah, and they're growing so fast you almost can't call them Paul Davis of Utah now. They're Paul Davis of insert a string of states,
Okay.
but they've made such amazing progress in their ability to retain their workforce, and they're such a progressive company in terms of how they leverage technology. um, I mean, I think people today, and this is kind of speaking to our principle of mobilizing a bionic workforce and resisting operational entropy. But I think people today, especially young people coming up, they want to like it's interesting. It's like this there's like this paradigm at work, which is um, so many things in our culture. It seems like every other reality show is about why you can be a contractor and flip a castle, right? Um, it's like everybody wants to kind of get back into these like essential skills, and yet we all love technology.
Mhm.
And so when you see companies that marry the two, and it's just part of their calling card is if you work with us, yes, you're going to be doing kind of this like let's call it just like this salt of the earth type work, and yet you're going to be like super kitted out with technology.
Yep.
And Paul Davis Utah is awesome at that. Like I can't, I can't think of fewer firms that like I can't think of few firms that have done so much to like supercharge the capacity of their estimating teams, of their project managers. How rapidly they're able to adopt new solutions across their workforce, and it works. People people come work for them and they're just blown away. I mean, there are people that do tours of their facility, and it inspires them. Like anyone who people come to your office, as it's like they come into Disneyland to like leave with ideas. I mean, anyone who comes to visit you and brings a journal, I mean, you're going to be doing something right. And people come and they tour. An example of that is I think of Warner Cruz. Warner Cruz. It's very
Yeah.
common that people would come and visit his. I think they still do come and visit and just say, "How do you do what you do?" Paul Davis, Utah, would be one of those. What do they do very practically? Um, I think that there is. I have a cousin of mine he's a farmer, and he's a very successful farmer. And I remember asking him. I said, "What do you think is like? What do you think is like one of your like secret sauce things that you do, Jason?" And he said, all this equipment and all this technology that's come into our industry, he said the average farmer around here, they probably only get about 15, maybe 20% of the actual horsepower out of these solutions.
Mm.
He said, we get about 90%. And I think Paul Davis has just figured out how to get like 90% of the horsepower out of the things that they invest in. And they're just super, super committed to like redlining from a like a revolutions per minute, like redlining what they get out of the tools that they adopt. Power users of Knowhow. And there's nothing more that any provider or any vendor wants than for someone to just like take it to the extreme
Yeah.
and come up with ways that you can enhance it. But I think that what they do in terms of like they just don't fight technology. They just in many ways they like make technology work for them. Insert expletive, right? you know.
Yep. Okay, so before we wrap it up, I want to talk about a
Mhm.
little bit also how in your books you don't just kind of preach at people and educate them, you actually give them like steps,
Mhm.
things to do, actionable
Mhm.
things to do. So this can you can treat things that Know How puts out. It was the same with State of the Industry last year.
Mhm.
If you downloaded the entire report, there were action steps that you could take. So talk a little bit about those, how you developed those, and how the steps in this book specifically are designed for short term and long term. So it's like get this now,
Mhm.
but know that this is going to be carrying on for a while.
Yeah. First question: how do we come up with it? Well, some of it is connecting the dots and just seeing what people are doing and just say, hey, why reinvent the wheel?
Mhm.
The other thing is that we've spent enough time identifying things that aren't working, or hearing from like we just have boatloads. We just have you know cloud folders full of survey responses that are people anonymously saying, "You want to know why good people quit here?" And we just have that. We just like have hundreds and hundreds of those. And so you can read between the lines that it's pretty easy to just start formulating a list of stop doing this if you're doing it, stop doing this, start doing this. And if you're open to making a long-term investment, here are some examples of things you can invest in that seem to be delivering results. Some of it is frankly from my experience building and scaling service companies, and just I have the advantage of had a lot of wins, but also I can empathize with leaders in the industry, and I can also recognize a lot of mistakes that I made, and so it comes from that. But when it comes down to just getting practical, I one of the things I commonly say is that people know that there's a bunch of stuff they're not doing, right? And so people know that's like there's probably a ton of things I'm not doing,
Yep.
but sometimes you don't take the time to say because like well if I got to do something new, then I'm going to need to learn about it. I'm going to need to implement it. I'm going to need to sustain it. I'm going to need to find someone to delegate ownership over it. That's a lot of effort.
Hmm.
Well, lower hanging fruit is things you should stop doing, right?
Yeah.
Just cut them off.
Yep.
And so each principle does have a list of things that you should stop doing. And I'm happy to speak to some of those examples. But the stop doing is actually I don't know which is hard is more difficult, to stop doing something or to start doing something. Stop doing something is admitting you have a problem. Sometimes it
Yep.
takes a lot of courage. Sometimes stop doing is represented by a team member that has to go. Um, but that's how we come up with it. Stop doing, start doing, and invest.
Okay, so what would you give us one example of a stop doing? Because I gotta ask. So I'm curious now. One
Well,
example. Yeah, go ahead.
well, let's look at, for example, Uh, one of the principles that has been popular is this idea of advancing the whole worker, and what we talk about is avoiding lopsided workers. And so this is an industry where I would say we really value a person's not only their technical competence, but that competence as it's exhibited in certifications
Hmm.
and courses and course completions and letters by their name. And I think those things are important. But when we begin to place all value and focus, praise, and emphasis on what a person accomplishes at work, and we really give little consideration to how they're making progress in their personal life, things as simple as Are they driving a vehicle that they're proud of, right? Like, have they knocked down their student debt? I mean, heck, they've been working for us for 10 years. Where are they at with that?
Mm-hmm.
And when a person is not achieving balanced success in their personal life and success in their career life, and all we do is just keep praising and just keep putting opportunities in front of people. We like to say that you're building an imbalanced person who their home life becomes kind of like a very fragile house of cards. And
Yeah.
one thing happens at home, and all of this career prowess just collapses, you know? And we say, I don't understand. That person was so accomplished at work. Well, it's because they built all that on toothpicks, where toothpicks represent their home life. So something to stop doing is to stop exclusively praising someone for progress made in their career, and start making time to praise them for progress made in their personal life.
I like it. That's
Mm-hmm.
that's a deep one, and that's big. For the society's changed so much. It used to be like, no, you leave home at the house
Mm-hmm.
stuff at
Yeah.
the door and whatever. But it's in today's world and technology and all that, it's hard to separate them entirely. So
Yeah. I
people want
agree.
to be known for who they are, not just who they are at work. So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
Leighton, anything else that you want to add? And be sure to tell people one more time where they can find the book, either to buy a hard copy or if they want
Mm-hmm.
to do a digital download. So tell them that, and anything else you want to say before we wrap it up.
You can get a hard copy at Amazon.com. And but if you want to get a digital copy, which there's no cost associated, you can go to winningwithworkers.com. We also have it on our website, tryknowhow.com. We've got what I believe to be a really robust resource section where you can get all of our books. The books that you referenced were Why Workers Quit. Another one is called 5-Star Experiences, and then a host of other resources that we make available. All the principles are anchored in podcast episodes that are available, but that's where you get the copy of the book. I think I think what I would love to just close with is by simply challenging people to say, principles. Let me put it this way: is that so much of this book is written towards managers. It's written towards, Why Workers Quit was really shining a light and giving a microphone to the front line. This book is really written towards managers. It's really written towards supervisors, or maybe people that aspire to that. And what I've learned in my own life, and what I observe in the lives of others, is that really unconsciously, when we move into roles of greater responsibility, we have reference points. We're either referencing a way I was treated that I didn't like, and I'm really, my style is to stay away from that. Or there was someone who I thought I really respected, and I'm trying to be like her, or try to be like him. And reference points really matter, especially when you're navigating tumultuous times and you're navigating turbulence. And so I would look at this book. Maybe all 8 principles aren't for you, but I would look at this book as an opportunity to maybe recalibrate your reference points for how you make decisions and how you evaluate whether you're on the right track, based on what I believe to be some trustworthy points of reference on the horizon that you can look to and say, how am I doing, and how's my team doing, and maybe even reevaluate the way you've thought about things. The industry's in a workforce crisis. If you haven't experienced it, then it just means the wave hasn't hit, your piece of the sandbar yet, but it's coming. And what I like to often say, Michelle, is that demographic shifts, culture shifts, technology preferences, those are so much bigger than the quarter, the $250 billion industry that is restoration. And they were going to have an outsized impact on companies that don't think about how do we adapt the work experience that we provide, and we're here to help at Knowhow.
Perfect. Well, Leighton, thank you very much. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, and congrats on yet another book churned out by your team. You guys do such a great job. I'm looking forward to churning out another State of the Industry report in the next couple months here and getting that across the finish line, which then of course just starts up another race for us for events and stuff like that. But getting it across the first finish line is the first goal. So thank you so much for all you and your team do, and I hope you have an awesome rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. Much appreciated.
For more restoration today and the latest news, visit our website, cnrmagazine.com, and find the latest episodes of the Restoration Today podcast on your favorite podcasting platform.